Hello, and welcome back to another Pen Talk. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for following me as I explore the wide world of pens. And yes, you see one in front of you on a turntable, but I felt that it needed to be held up with a more plain holder, so the crabs are on vacation for this particular video. The first thing you notice about this pen is it is a very streamlined design. I would say it's a very classic design. It's definitely an all-metal pen. And why do I have it? Well, I saw a promotion in an AliExpress email. I get them regularly. And it had a Hung Dian pen, which I thought was quite interesting, but I thought the price was a little bit high for what it was. So I went exploring, and I found this pen on Amazon, along with a bunch of other pens. And it arrived quickly, which would not be the case if ordering it from China. Even though I know some people have had some major challenges with delivery from China, I fortunately have not. And I guess that's the luck of the draw. So let's explore this pen in more detail, compare it to all my other Hung Dian pens. And I do have an ink in mind, a new ink that I want to put in this pen because I expect this pen to be an everyday carry, one that I take notes with. I like to live dangerously and put new ink into a new pen. This is one of my purchases at the Commonwealth Pen Show from Nathan, is Lexington Gray. And it is definitely a gray ink. It's the grayest ink that I have. I don't have many gray inks. But why is it in the pen? Is because it is extremely water resistant. This is where I put the line down, counted 10, and put it in water. And as you can see, it bonded to this chromatography paper immediately. And there was hardly anything being pushed once it went into water. So let's see how it looks coming out of the nib on the Hung Dian. I was able to easily get a full fill on this converter, and I did one fill, push the ink out into the bottle, and then one second fill very slowly, pulling it up. It's a habit I've gotten into with my cartridge converters when I want a full fill, and I also want to flush the feed and nib even more, even though I did flush it with soapy solution and water before I inked it up. I'd rather be safe than sorry. The first thing I can say about this ink is, wow, I really haven't gotten into gray inks before, and as this is any indication of what a gray ink can do, I'm blown away. I love the shading. It dries almost instantaneously, would work well for those left-handers that drag across their writing. I mean, this is wonderful. And this nib is very smooth. It is very stiff, so that's one thing you need to be used to, but from an everyday writer perspective, that's okay. You want a consistent writer. You want one that will work on different papers, and I think this is an excellent combination from my perspective. So this is going to go in the beginning of the video, and at the end, we're going to do the rating. So the pen was delivered by Amazon, and it just came in your classic Amazon mail package, envelope style with padded envelope, and it was surrounded by this styrofoam, and it was in your classic metal pen box. with no identifying markers. Pop open the cover, and we see the pen in a classic cellophane sleeve, which came all apart. And it is a very classic cellophane, excellent cellophane sounds. And the first thing to me, impressions of the pen, is it feels good. It's that standard, stainless steel finish on it with some chrome bits there, the top finial, the bottom finial. Aesthetically, it certainly is well balanced. And we got a clip with a hung Dian emblem there, very stylized, but nothing at the top of the finial. It's not a pop-off cap, which is one of the things I would have expected from the design. It does unscrew, and we need to see how many turns. A little bit over 1 1/4 turns, and we'll see a standard hung Dian stainless steel number 5 nib plastic feed, and it's a fine, and it's labeled. We see a somewhat small metal section, but it certainly is textured interestingly. And in the hand, it feels small. I say that's my first impression. Is it too small to use? No, it is not. And from that design, one would expect it to post, and it does post, and it works well posted, and it looks nice posted. So it's just a classic metal pen. I think it's a reasonable price, and it is secure. So it's a poster's delight. But no, it's a hung Dian. The other thing one does is unscrews the section. Takes a few turns, which is fine. It's not something you're going to do every day. And we'll see a standard converter. Very secure there, and as we can see, it has that metal band with a nice insert and a fairly large opening. It's certainly not an international standard opening, that's for one. Could be like that Parker Lamy style, but I'm not one to swap things around, nor to care if I can do that. It's very nice machined metal, and that screws back on. And we'll put the cap back on, and that seam almost disappears, kind of reminiscent of another pen that I've recently reviewed, which we will look at quickly. And it is engraved there with hung Dian 517S. They do a lot of 3-digit numeric codes with a alpha character at the end, and there's some designations to that, but they escape me right now. So we're going to explore the bits of this pen, take it apart, as I said, compare it to other hung Dian pens that I have, and maybe a few other pens, maybe the pen that inspired this design. Here we have the hung Dian disassembled as much as I'm going to do. So I took apart the converter to remove this spring agitator, which I do not like. Number one, it makes the pen hard to clean out because that collects ink, so when you want to change ink colors, you got to flush it over and over again, or else take it apart like I did here. So why not take it apart and get rid of the spring? And I haven't found the spring agitators to eliminate ink being stuck away from the nib on a converter. That's a very light piece, and it really doesn't move up and down as well as it should. So as I have it apart, I'll lubricate the end of the piston, I'll lubricate these threads. I did unscrew the nib assembly, and it's a standard hung Dian number 5 nib assembly. And I've flushed this. I tried a reasonable effort to pull out the nib and feed, and it did not pull out. So that's the pen. Very simple. It's fairly well made. And let's look and see what's inside the cap. We're down to very low light, and you can see my trusty LED is coming into play here. It's a very shiny chromed clip, chromed finial, nice flat end there, a little conical. It's just a classic design. And yes, that clip is very stiff, but functional. As we look inside, we'll see there appears to be a little bit of a liner, but you can see at the very top of that cap, if I get everything aligned properly, you can see that metal insert, which is the finial. There's expectations that it might seal up fairly well. You got a little ledge in there for the section to seal up against, so it passes the test. And there's a plastic liner in there where the threads are, so we have plastic threads from the cap onto metal threads onto the barrel, which I'm fine with. I haven't had any issues with metal on plastic. Here I have some of my Hong Dian pen models. Here's our pen of review. Here we have one that I take a couple of them that are similar to these Black Forests, which I love in black and also blue, and they come in other colors. Here are the other colors they come in. And these have a design of being able to post on the end of the barrel, but they post fairly high. Here's a recent one I reviewed that they made some slight changes to the design. You can see how they've definitely taken to heart the thin metal pen design and incorporated into it a number of different little features that I think are quite nice. And they can also do turned acrylic pens. Here's a 560. I'll post a link to my Hong Dian playlist, so if you wanted to review any of these pens in more detail, you can go to the playlist. Well, here they are uncapped and posted, and they all post to relatively good degrees of posting. This one's definitely the longest. The Black Forest versions also post interestingly. The H1 here and the 560. I think we need to focus in on the sections and nibs because these are all quite different. And I'm impressed with the variety that Hong Dian has in their models of pens. So here we're looking up close up, and obviously this 516 nib is quite unique among these. Standard number 5, standard number 5, standard number 5, also standard number 5, but with an interesting overlay to it. And they also make a very nice number 6 nib. Even though this section is probably the thickest of these varieties here, this one's probably close to being the thickest too. They all have different treatments that allow you to comfortably use these metal sections for long writing sessions. And this is your classic design section here. I put it into my dual fold emulation folder. And I really do like the treatment of these nibs to match up to the color of the pens. Again, interesting how Hong Dian has approached this and the variety in which they offer in their different models. The other thing that's very interesting about the Hong Dian models is the top finial gets a different treatment from these various models. Very impressive in my view. And the one we're looking at now has a very plain finial, so they certainly run the gambit. So you may ask what pen may have inspired Hong Dian, and we have here in the middle a Parker 45 Flighter, stainless steel, cap and barrel, this little black finial at the end, arrow clip. Up here we have a Wing Sung 601 in a similar finish, but this has a blind cap and has that great draw filler, so this is, to me, a very well designed and executed pen, and it's been a daily writer for me since I got it. And here's the Hong Dian. Again, we're following a similar pattern, but the way this clip is designed, that shiny chrome certainly is very shiny. And we have this minimalistic design, which is apparent in all of these. These are both pull-off caps, where this is a screw-on cap, which is a little bit different. And the bottom finial also has some shares in trade of what they did on the 601, but let's look at them uncapped. As one would expect, they all post very well. The 45 posts the deepest of these, and you may have noticed a little bit of a mark there from posting it on that barrel, posting the cap on the barrel. These are posted a little bit higher, but they certainly have interesting sections and also completely different nibs. Hooded nib a la Parker 51, semi-hooded nib. So the 45 followed the 51, and it was a very excellent design. It lasted for many decades and has a lot of followers. And the Dian went with a more standard number 5 nib in their design. So this 45 has never been in daily rotation for me. I went on a buying binge like I do on occasion, and I bought a bunch of 45s. You know, I didn't pay much money for them on eBay. One of the deficits is this cap is extremely loose. In fact, I would say it's fairly unsecure. The other thing you know is Parkers have a tendency for distortion in the section there. This has a slight distortion to it. It doesn't affect the writability, but it certainly aesthetically is a little bit unnerving. It just has a gold-plated steel nib, nothing special. But you know, all pens have their nuances and all pens have their attractions and detractions. The Parker 45 is not an exception to that. So now for that editorial part of the video. And I think I'm going to move the major writing earlier in the video just to entice viewers. And also, a lot of viewers only want to see the writing, so I'll put it up front. And YouTube tells me that most people only watch at most a third of the video on average, so they'll get to see the writing without having to go through the whole video. So why do I have this pen in my hand right now? I collect pens. I enjoy looking at pens, understanding why they exist, what market they're made for, do they succeed in that market. And the fact that this is sold on Amazon just made it an easy purchase for me. Not that I needed another metal pen, but I did. I like the pen. I think it's well made. But I think we need to just do a little comparison to put metal pens in perspective. So the last metal pens I reviewed were these two from Modern Fuel. And as a writer, as much as this pen is fine and it fills its market niche, there's no comparison in my hand in using the pen to write with. These two Modern Fuel pens just feel phenomenal in the hand. The 517 feels good, but not phenomenal. The weight, the balance, fit and finish, and everything else on these pens are just extraordinary. This is just standard. But, you know, it's almost 10 or 10x times difference in price. But to me, the Modern Fuel, I feel, is still a value for the price, considering there's not a lot that you're going to be able to do in the marketplace that is similar. You could get other metal pens, other handmade metal pens that might be less money, but in my experience, they're not going to be to the same level of Modern Fuel. And it has a lifetime guarantee. I came to this pen from reviewing Modern Fuel, and right away, it doesn't have the weight. The finish is okay, but it doesn't feel as good in the hand as the Modern Fuel does. So that kind of tainted my feelings for the pen, but I still like it. And you may understand from watching my videos, there's not much that I don't like, because I enjoy variety in my life. I enjoy that. And I try to look at everything for what it is, not what I think it should be, and hopefully share with you what it is and not taint it with some personal feelings on my part. Enough of the editorial comment. Let's put nib to paper and see how it writes. So let me rate this pen, and I'm going to give it a 9.2. It gets one check for design, fit, and finish, and it gets one check for the writing. Why isn't it more than a 9.2? Because it just doesn't have any wow factor into it. Sometimes that's okay. Everyday carries are not necessarily meant to be a totally wow pen, but consistency is good. The other reason why I don't rank it more is as I went through my other hung Dian pens, which are similarly made, the nib doesn't dry out overnight, but over a week or more it will dry out. And in some of the pens where they've sat for a month, I couldn't get them to write. So that's one thing to keep in mind if you're interested in these hung Dian pens, is you need to write with them regularly in order to have them write consistently. Hopefully you've enjoyed this look at another pen, and I enjoyed showing it to you. I hope this video finds you safe, healthy, and happy, enjoying your pens, finding a great ink to try out that you haven't done before, and enjoying how it looks on paper and how it feels when you write with it. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of my viewers equally. We've reached the end of this video, and we're going to say bye. The next videos will be quite interesting. Hopefully you'll stay tuned and watch.